Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are painting 3 portraits in my sketchbook using watercolor and color pencils. And yes, I hear you ask, is it from the 100 head challenge? I'll let you guess. But yes, it is. Alright, let's start. Let's start with the sketch today. I used a 4H type of pencil this time. In my last video, I don't know which type I used, but it was a much softer type and it was less forgiving than a harder type like a 4H is. I did some research on the different types of pencils and I thought it would be fun to share it with you. Personally, I'm sure I knew this information at some point, probably during my art classes in high school, but it's been so long. So let's start with the beginning. What do the abbreviations on the pencils mean? B stands for black, which refers to the intensity of the color. These pencils are soft pencils. H stands for hard. They leave less graphite on the paper, so their color is lighter. HB has a medium hardness and color intensity. F stands for firm or fine point, I'm not sure. The number preceding the letter tells you how intense the hardness, softness, or color is. For example, a 6B pencil is softer and blacker than a 2B. Knowing that now, I think that the pencil I used last time was a 2 to 4B. This time, I chose the 4H and it makes much more sense for sketching. When I sketch, I want to draw precise and pale lines so the features of the portraits are easy to see. When I'm satisfied with the sketch, I then go over it with a ballpoint pen. But even with the best tools, sometimes you have bad sketching days. I think I was a little bit rusty, so I had to erase a lot and I gave up on some parts of the portraits, like the second lady's hands. I couldn't see them clearly on the reference picture and they were cropped, so I decided to leave them like that. I also had some trouble with the third lady. Her head was too big and I had to spend a lot of time fixing it. I think in my sketch she looks older than in the reference picture, but oh well. After all of this struggle, now is the time to go over our sketch with a ballpoint pen. I love using red when I do portraits because I feel like this color goes well with skin tones, no matter how light or dark. Now we are ready to start painting. This time I'm using my Chinese calligraphy brushes. This one is the main one I'm gonna use, but I also have all of these in this beautiful box. They were gifted to me and to be honest, I had never used any calligraphy brushes before. I had them for a couple of months, but they were so stiff. At first, I just figured this was normal and you just use the tip to write. I wasn't sure if they would get softer with water or if they were supposed to be like that. On the other hand, I saw that a lot of people were using calligraphy brushes for their watercolors, so I figured that these would probably work as well. I could have done some research on it, but for some reason, I didn't even think of it. I read about the subject before recording this voiceover, and here's what I found. Apparently, using any calligraphy brushes for watercolor is good, but Chinese ones are even more interesting. They are softer than average, from what I read. I guess that mine were stiff because they were new, so the bristles had never been in contact with water yet. After a couple of swirls in my water jar, they got super soft. Soft brushes soak up more water and ink, so you don't have to dip it back into the paint as often. In a set like mine, I should have some stiffer and some softer brushes. Stiffer brushes are useful to do the details. My brushes are quite short, which is great for handling when you're doing details. It could be interesting to add a longer and thicker one to create backgrounds more easily. Another interesting thing is fiber types, natural or synthetic. I have no idea what type of fibers my brushes have, but I was wondering if they were natural because they feel so different than my watercolor brushes, which I know are synthetic. They are softer and they soak up way more color, which is a characteristic found in natural fibers, I think. In my research, I found that Chinese calligraphy brushes often come in natural fibers or a mix of natural and synthetic. During this painting, my brushes lost a little bit of hair, so maybe that's because they're a little bit old. Anyway, I loved using them. Now, let's talk about the painting. I decided to use the colors that dried in my pan. I didn't wash it after my last watercolor, and I didn't want to waste them. It was interesting trying to create new mixes with some old leftovers. I started with a light base layer for each portrait, as you do with watercolor. The fun thing about painting these 3 portraits at once is that you can switch from one to the other, allowing them to dry before working on the next layer. After the first layer, I wanted to introduce some new colors, so I put my palette in the frame so you could see which colors I pick. This is the Komorebi Japanese watercolor palette. Here I switched to the finer brush to do the details. It was so satisfying. For this painting, I only used these 2 brushes from my set, but I have so many more and I have different shapes, so I'm super excited to try all of the brushes that I have. I'm kind of wondering how I'll be able to go back to my old watercolor brushes at this point. I guess we'll see. Here you can see that the hair color spread a lot on the third lady's face. I know I talked about embracing the watercolor and its behavior in one of my last painting videos, but this was too much. This is due to the paper buckling. I tried lifting the color with some water and then using a dry towel. It kind of worked. After that, I decided to check on the painting on the other side of the page to see if the paint had reactivated. There was a gouache painting there, so I was worried that the water had gone through the page and had reactivated the paint and possibly created a mess. Turns out there were some damp spots, but nothing too bad. And now we arrive to the unfortunate part of this painting. This portrait is a repeat for me. I already painted this lady a long time ago. If you watch my sketchbook tour, I put an image of my first painting of this lady. I remember struggling a little bit with the proportions and the shadows on her face. This time, I really wanted to have a second chance, a do-over. Turns out I overdid it. I should have built the shadows layer by layer, but I went with a dark color from the start, and after that, there was no turning back. If I had gone with a lighter shade at first, I could have created a gradient, but now her skin went from super light to super dark without transition. And now she looks super scary. After I was done painting the portraits, I decided to tie the piece together with a blue and purple background. I didn't wait for the portraits to be totally dried before doing this step, allowing the paint to mix together a little bit. And now we are at the last step. I wanted to try using color pencils on top of the watercolor to add some details and to potentially try to save the first portrait. The shadows on her face were way too harsh, and I thought maybe color pencils could help creating a gradient and soften the colors a little bit. It was also really helpful to define her eyes better. If you are wondering why a portrait suddenly appeared on the next page, it's because I drew it while waiting for the background to dry. I wanted this page to be completely dried before using my color pencils. I like this final step. It was my first time doing this technique. I also used my Pit Artist pen to add the final details on the eyes. And then I continued to refine the colors on the other portraits, and we are done. Oh, and I wanted to tell you that I'm thinking of setting up a Discord for our small but growing community. I don't know, I think it would be fun to share our art on there, our reference pictures, and chat with other art lovers. Tell me what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're not already. Take care, and I'll see you soon.